Jack wakes up with a huge hangover after attending his company's Christmas party. Jack is not normally a drinker, but the drinks didn't taste like alcohol at all. He didn't even remember how he got home from the party. As bad as he was feeling, he wondered if he did something wrong. Jack had to force himself to open his eyes, and the first thing he sees is a couple of aspirins next to a glass of water on the side table. And, next to them, a single red rose. Jack sits up and sees his clothing in front of him, all clean and pressed. He looks around the room and sees that it is in perfect order, spotlessly clean. So is the rest of the house. He takes the aspirins and cringes when he sees a huge black eye staring back at him in the bathroom mirror. Then he notices a note hanging on the corner of the mirror written in red with little hearts on it and a kiss mark from his wife in lipstick. "Honey, breakfast is on the stove. I left early to get groceries to make your favorite dinner tonight. I love you, darling. Love, Jillian." He stumbles into the kitchen, and sure enough, there is a hot breakfast, steaming hot coffee, and the morning newspaper all waiting for him. His son is also at the table, eating. Jack asks, "Son, what happened last night?" "Well, you came home after 3 in the morning, drunk and out of your mind. You fell over the coffee table and broke it, and then you puked in the hallway and got that black eye when you ran into the door." Confused, he asked his son, "So, why is everything in such perfect order and so clean? I have a rose and breakfast is on the table waiting for me." His son replies, "Oh, that! Well, Mum dragged you to the bedroom, and when she tried to take your pants off, you screamed, 'Leave me alone, I'm married!'" A guy walks into a post office one day to see a middle-aged, balding man standing at the counter methodically placing love stamps on bright pink envelopes with hearts all over them. He then takes out a perfume bottle and starts spraying scent all over them. His curiosity getting the better of him, he goes up to the balding man and asks him what he is doing. The man says, "I'm sending out 1,000 Valentine cards signed. Guess who?" "But why?" asks the man. "I'm a divorce lawyer and I need some new business," the man replies. 2 little kids are in a hospital, lying on stretchers next to each other outside the operating room. The first kid leans over and asks, "What are you in here for?" The second kid says, "I'm in here to get my tonsils out and I'm a little nervous." The first kid says, "You've got nothing to worry about. I had that done when I was 4. They put you to sleep, and when you wake up, they give you lots of Jell-O and ice cream. It's a breeze." The second kid then asks, "What are you here for?" The first kid says, "A circumcision." And the second kid says, "Whoa, I had that done when I was born. I couldn't walk for a year." A woman and a baby were in the doctor's examining room, waiting for the doctor to come in for the baby's first exam. The doctor arrived and examined the baby, checked his weight, and, being a little concerned, asked if the baby was naturally or bottle-fed. "Naturally fed," she replied. "Well, strip down to your waist. I need to check that the baby is able to feed from you correctly," the doctor ordered. She did. He pressed, kneaded, and rubbed the area for a while in a very professional and detailed examination. Motioning to her to get dressed, the doctor said, "No wonder this baby is underweight. You don't have any milk." "I know," she said. "I'm his grandma. But boy, am I glad I brought him." A scruffy-looking guy goes into a bar and orders a drink. The bartender says, "No way. I don't think you can pay for it." The guy says, "You're right. I don't have any money, but if I show you something you haven't seen before, will you give me a drink?" The bartender says, "Only if what you show me isn't risqué." "Deal," says the guy, and reaches into his coat pocket and pulls out a hamster. He puts the hamster on the bar, and it runs to the end of the bar, climbs down the bar, runs across the room, up the piano, jumps on the keyboard, and starts playing a tune. And the hamster is really good. The bartender says, "You're right. I've never seen anything like that before. That hamster is truly good on the piano. The guy downs the drink and asks the bartender for another. Money or another miracle, or else no drink, says the bartender. The guy reaches into his coat again and pulls out a frog. He puts the frog on the bar and the frog starts to sing. He has a marvelous voice and great pitch. A fine singer. A stranger from the other end of the bar runs over to the guy and offers him $300 for the frog. The guy says, "It's a deal." He takes the $300 and gives the stranger the frog. The stranger runs out of the bar. The bartender says to the guy, "Are you some kind of nut? You sold a singing frog for $300. It must have been worth millions. You must be crazy." "Not so," says the guy. The hamster is also a ventriloquist. Little Fred is having problems learning math. It's bad report after bad report, so his parents in desperation enroll him in a very strict Catholic school. After his first day and returning home, instead of his normal straight on with the TV and watching cartoons, plus munching his way through crisps and biscuits, he goes straight to his room. His mom goes up 15 minutes later and sees him writing studiously with math books all over his desk. Finally, at year-end, he brings his report home and shows it to his parents. To their astonishment, he has an A+ for maths. They are so happy and praise him to the highest level. Curious, his mom asks him why he has changed from the days when he was getting straight E's. Little Fred replies, "Well, on that very first day, I knew they were serious about math when I saw that guy nailed to the plus sign." A man in the Florida supermarket tries to buy half a head of lettuce. The very young produce assistant tells him that they sell only whole heads of lettuce. The man persists and asks to see the manager. The boy says he'll ask his manager about it. Walking into the back room, the boy said to his manager, "Some dollop wants to buy half a head of lettuce." As he finished his sentence, he turned to find the man standing right behind him, so he added, "And this gentleman has kindly offered to buy the other half." The manager approved the deal, and the man went on his way. Later, the manager said to the boy, "I was impressed with the way you got yourself out of that situation earlier. We like people who think on their feet here. Where are you from, son?" "Canada, sir," the boy replied. "Well, why did you leave Canada?" the manager asked. The boy said, "Sir, there's nothing but hookers and hockey players up there." "Really?" said the manager. "My wife is from Canada." "Honestly?" replied the boy. "Did she play much for the Toronto Maple Leafs?" A tractor salesman is having a drink in the local bar and is really down in the mouth. His friend John, a local farmer, comes in, spots him, and asks, "Why are you so glum, Billy?" "Well, I am in trouble. If I don't sell another tractor soon, I will have to close the business." "That's bad news, Billy, but I have troubles as well." "Really?" Billy inquires. "Well, you know that bad-tempered cow Bessie we have. Well, I took her into the barn to milk her, and when I moved to start, she kept flicking me in the face with her tail. So I got a piece of rope and tied it to the rafters. I started to try and milk her again, and she started kicking out at me, so I took another piece of rope and I tied her left back leg up to the left pen fence and started to try and milk her again. Well, she started to kick out with her right back leg. I had no rope, so I took off my belt and strapped her right back leg to the right pen fence. Well, without a belt, my pants fell down. So if you can convince my wife I was milking Bessie, I will buy one of your tractors." George W. Bush was out jogging one morning along the parkway when he tripped, fell over the bridge railing, and landed in the creek below. Before the Secret Service guys could get to him, 3 kids who were fishing pulled him out of the water. He was so grateful he offered the kids whatever they wanted. The first kid said, "I sure would like to go to Disneyland." George said, "No problem. I'll take you there on Air Force One." The second kid said, "I really need a new pair of Nike Air Jordans." George said, "I'll get them for you, and even have Michael sign them." The third kid said, "I want a motorized wheelchair with a built-in TV and stereo headset." George Bush is a little perplexed by this and says, "But you don't look like you are injured." The kid says, "But I will be after my dad finds out I saved you from drowning." Brother John entered the monastery of silence, and the abbot said, "Brother, this is a silent monastery. You are welcome here as long as you like, but you may not speak until I direct you to do so." Brother John lived in the monastery for 5 years before the abbot said to him, "Brother John, you have been here 5 years now. You may speak 2 words." Brother John said, "Hard bed." "I'm sorry to hear that," the abbot said. "We will get you a better bed." After another 5 years, Brother John was called by the abbot. "You may say another 2 words, Brother John." "Cold food," said Brother John, and the abbot assured him that the food would be better in the future. On his 15th anniversary at the monastery, the abbot again calls Brother John into his office. "2 words you may say today." "I quit," said Brother John. "It is probably best. You've done nothing but complain since you got here." An old married couple is traveling to Australia for a month's holiday. Halfway through the flight, the captain comes on the tannoy to announce that the engines have failed and that they will have to make an emergency landing. However, they have found an uncharted island where they could land. After 10 minutes, they land on the beach, and the crew and passengers set off to look for supplies and shelter. The old couple, Bill and Freda, sit down on the shore to recover from the ordeal. Bill asks Freda, "You know the visa bill for £4,000 that covers this holiday and the things we bought, did you pay it?" "No, dear," Freda replies. "You know that outstanding VAT bill we had from the tax man that we had to pay for the goods we sold in our business before we retired? Have you paid it?" "No, dear," Freda replies, at which Bill grabs Freda and kisses her amorously. "Thank you, darling. I know we are going to be saved. They will definitely find us." At the end of the tax year, the tax office sent an inspector to audit the books of a synagogue. While he was checking the books, he turned to the rabbi and said, "I notice you buy a lot of candles. What do you do with the candle drippings?" "Good question," noted the rabbi. "We save them up and send them back to the candle makers, and every now and then they send us a free box of candles." "Oh," replied the auditor, somewhat disappointed that his unusual question had a practical answer. But on he went, in his obnoxious way. "What about all these biscuit purchases? What do you do with the crumbs?" "Ah, yes," replied the rabbi, realizing that the inspector was trying to trap him with an unanswerable question. "We collect them and send them back to the manufacturers, and every now and then they send a free box of holy biscuits." "I see," replied the auditor, thinking hard about how he could fluster the know-it-all rabbi. "Well, Rabbi," he went on, "what do you do with all the leftover foreskins from the circumcisions you perform?" "Here, too, we do not waste," answered the rabbi. "What we do is save up all the foreskins and send them to the tax office, and about once a year they send us a complete plonker." In an Irish institution, there is a tradition where the 2 most reformed patients are asked a couple of questions, and if they answer correctly, they are allowed to leave. This year, it's a lady called Patty and a man called Mike. The institute's senior doctor asks the questions. Patty is first up. "I know you understand what is about to happen, Patty, so here are your 2 questions. If I were to poke you in the eye with a sharp instrument, what would happen?" Patty immediately answers, "I would be half blind." "Correct," the doctor says. "And if I repeated that with your other eye?" Patty replies, "I'd be totally blind." "You are again correct. Please wait in the waiting room and ask Mike to come in." Patty goes out and tells Mike what the questions are and what he should answer. Mike goes in and again the doctor explains the process, asking the first question. "If I were to cut off your right ear, what would happen?" Mike immediately answers, "I would be half blind." Puzzled, the doctor immediately follows up with the second question. "And if I cut off your other ear?" Mike answers again, "I would be totally blind." The doctor, now totally confused, asks, "How would you be totally blind if I cut off both your ears?" Mike responds, "Simple, sir. My hat would fall over my eyes." A store that sells husbands has just opened in London, where a woman may go to choose a husband. Among the instructions at the entrance is a description of how the store operates. You may visit the store only once. There are 6 floors, and the attributes of the men increase as the shopper ascends the flights. There is, however, a catch. You may choose any man from a particular floor, or you may choose to go up a floor, but you cannot go back down except to exit the building. So a woman goes to the husband store to find a husband. On the first floor, the sign on the door reads, "Floor 1, these men have jobs." The second floor sign reads, "Floor 2, these men have jobs and love kids." The third floor sign reads, "Floor 3, these men have jobs, love kids, and are extremely good-looking." Wow, she thinks, but feels compelled to keep going. She goes to the 4th floor, and the sign reads, "Floor 4, these men have jobs, love kids, are drop-dead good-looking, and help with the housework." "Oh, mercy me," she exclaims. "I can hardly stand it." However, still she goes to the 5th floor, and the sign reads, "Floor 5, these men have jobs, love kids, are drop-dead gorgeous, help with the housework, and have a strong romantic streak." She is so tempted to stay, but she goes to the 6th floor, and the sign reads, "Floor 6, you are visitor 4,363,012 to this floor. There are no men on this floor. This floor exists solely as proof that women are impossible to please. Thank you for shopping at the husband store. Watch your step as you exit the building, and have a nice day." John is at university, and he invited his mother over for dinner. During the meal, his mother couldn't help noticing how beautiful John's roommate was. She had long been suspicious of a relationship between John and his roommate, and this only made her more curious. Over the course of the evening, while watching the two interact, she started to wonder if there was more between John and the roommate than met the eye. Reading his mom's thoughts, John volunteered, "I know what you must be thinking, but I assure you, Julie and I are just roommates." About a week later, Julie came to John and said, "Ever since your mother came to dinner, I've been unable to find the beautiful silver gravy ladle. You don't suppose she took it, do you?" John said, "Well, I doubt it, but I'll write her a letter just to be sure." So he sat down and wrote, "Dear Mother, I'm not saying you did take a gravy ladle from my house, and I'm not saying you did not take a gravy ladle. But the fact remains that one has been missing ever since you were here for dinner." Several days later, John received a letter from his mother, which read, "Dear son, I'm not saying that you do sleep with Julie, and I'm not saying that you do not sleep with Julie. But the fact remains that if she were sleeping in her own bed, she would have found the gravy ladle by now. Love, Mom." This husband was complaining to a buddy that he and his wife were arguing, and he hadn't been home in a few days. His buddy told him what he does when he argues with his wife is to sneak into the house, lift the bottom of the sheets to the bed, and slide up until he is in between his wife's legs, and give her the tongue lashing of her life. So the husband goes home and creeps through the front door, sneaks up the stairs so as not to make a sound, quietly opens the bedroom door, lifts the sheets on the bed, slides up until he's in between legs, and starts to give the best performance of his life. She starts moaning and flailing around until she climaxes. So the husband walks into the bathroom and turns on the light so he can clean up. There was his wife, sitting on the toilet. He screamed, "OMG, what are you doing in here?" His wife quietly says, "Keep your voice down, my mother is asleep in our bed." Well, a Chinese gentleman came to visit America. He walks by a choir practicing who happened to be warming up before singing a song, and he hears them recite "Meme Meme." He thinks, "I'll fit in here." and so he starts saying, "Mima mime." He then passes by a restaurant called Forks and Knives, so he starts saying, "Mime mime, forks and knives, forks and knives." He then walks by a candy store called Because He Stole My Lollipop. So he starts saying, "Mimi, mimi, my forks and knives, because he stole my lollipop." He then passes by a radio that's playing Plug It In. So he starts saying, "Mama, me, forks and knives, because he stole my lollipop. Plug it in, plug it in." As it happens, he spots a guy lying dead on the pavement across the street. The police arrive and start asking, "Who killed this man?" The Chinese man replies, "Me. What did you kill him with?" The police ask, forks and knives. They then ask him, "Why did you kill him?" "Because he stole my lollipop." The police have no choice and arrest the Chinese man. They tell him, "We're going to have to put you in the electric chair." He replies, "Plug it in, plug it in, in." A fisherman and his wife have 2 children, but the issue was they had no idea what to name them. No name sounded about right, but one day they realized that whenever they left them in a room to their own devices, one kid faced the sea and the other faced away. It was always the same kid, and it happened each and every time. So they decide to name their kids Towards and Away, and as the kids grew up, they always still faced towards and away from the sea when they're not doing something. Now, when they hit 13, their dad decides it's about time they learned the family business, so they packed food and water and went out to sea on their boat. After about 3 hours, the fisherman's wife starts to get worried, as they should have been back by now. They probably just found a good spot and are reluctant to leave, she says to herself. But for the next 3 hours, she starts to panic. Eventually, the boat came back, but it only held the fisherman. He was sobbing, and when he reached her, he told her what happened. "We got caught in a storm, and as the boat tipped, a huge fish leapt out of the water. Towards was so scared he ended up falling overboard and drowning." The fisherman's wife was in tears at hearing of the loss of her son. "That must have been a huge fish." The fisherman nodded. "Huge! You should have seen the one that got away." Groan. A henpecked husband was advised by a psychiatrist to assert himself. "You don't have to let your wife bully you," she said. "Go home and show her you're the boss." The husband decided to take the doctor's advice. He went home, slammed the door, shook his fist in his wife's face, and growled, "From now on, you're taking orders from me. I want my supper right now, and when you get it on the table, go upstairs and lay out my clothes. Tonight, I'm going out with the boys. You are going to stay at home where you belong. Another thing, you know who is going to tie my bow tie?" "I certainly do," said his wife calmly. "The Undertaker." A man has a heart attack and is brought to the hospital A&E. The doctor tells him that he will not live unless he has a heart transplant right away. Another doctor runs into the room and says, "You're in luck. 2 hearts just became available, so you will get to choose which one you want. One belongs to a lawyer and the other to a social worker." The man quickly responds, "The lawyers." The doctor says, "Wait, don't you want to know a little about them before you make your decision?" The man says, "I already know enough. We all know that social workers are bleeding hearts, and the lawyers probably never used his, so I'll take the lawyers." A mechanic was removing a cylinder head from the motor of a Harley motorcycle when he spotted a well-known heart surgeon in his shop. The surgeon was there waiting for the service manager to come and take a look at his bike. The mechanic shouted across the garage, "Hey, Doc, can I ask you a question?" The surgeon, a bit surprised, walked over to the mechanic working on the motorcycle. The mechanic straightened up, wiped his hands on a rag, and asked, "So, Doc, look at this engine. I open its heart, take valves out, fix them, and put them back in, and when I finish it works just like new. So how come I get such a small salary and you get the really big bucks when you and I are doing basically the same work?" The surgeon paused, smiled, and leaned over, whispering to the mechanic, "Try doing it with the engine running." Two beggars are sitting side by side on a street in Rome. One has a cross in front of him, the other one, the Star of David. Many people go by and look at both beggars, but only put money into the hat of the beggar sitting behind the cross. A priest comes by, stops and watches throngs of people giving money to the beggar behind the cross, but none give to the beggar behind the Star of David. Finally, the priest goes over to the beggar behind the Star of David and says, "My poor fellow, don't you understand? This is a Catholic country. This city is the seed of Catholicism. People aren't going to give you money if you sit there with a Star of David in front of you, especially when you're sitting beside a beggar who has a cross. In fact, they would probably give to him just out of spite." The beggar behind the Star of David listened to the priest, turned to the other beggar with the cross and said, "Elijah, who does this priest think he is? I ask you, trying to teach us, the Goldstein brothers, about marketing." A man walks into a bar with his dog. On seeing them, the bartender says, "I'm sorry, but we don't allow dogs in here. Please leave." The man replies, "I'm blind and this is my guide dog." Embarrassed, the bartender apologizes and says, "Sorry, sir, the first drink is on me." He passes the drink to the man, who then goes and sits at the door. After a few minutes, a man turns up with a dog. The blind man, on hearing him approach, warns him that the bar doesn't allow dogs in, but if you say it's your guide dog, you will even get a free drink. The man goes in, and the bartender shouts, "Please leave, sir. We don't allow dogs in here." The man replies, "I'm blind and it's my guide dog." The bartender replies, "Out now, they don't give blind people chihuahuas as guide dogs." The man pauses for a second and replies, "What? They gave me a chihuahua as a guide dog as they were having a laugh." Two men are playing a competitive golf match. One is a couple of holes down with 3 to go. He says to himself, "If I can sink this putt, that will be 1 down. 2 to play. I can win this." As he is about to putt, a stranger walks by and mutters, "If you could make that putt, would you give up a third of your sex life?" The man thinks about it and agrees, puts the ball and it goes in. At the next hole, he is 90 yards from the flag when the stranger walks by and says, "Your opponent is on the green with a birdie putt. Would you give up another third of your sex life to make this shot, which would give you an eagle and draw you level?" The man thinks about it again and agrees. He hits the ball with his wedge and it backspins into the hole, and so they move to the final hole. His opponent has a putt for par. The man is in the bunker when the stranger again walks by and says, "Your opponent has a simple putt for a par. If you could chip this in from the bunker, that would give you a birdie and you would win, but you would, of course, have to lose the final third of your sex life. That's no more sex for the rest of your days." So desperate to win the match and take the prize, the man agrees, chips the ball 1 bounce, and straight in the hole, he's won the match. On the way back to the stranger walks up and says, "You know, I have not been really fair with you. You don't know who I am." "Well, I am the devil, and I have just robbed you of your sex life for the rest of your days." Father O'Malley, nice to meet the opposition. A lady about 8 months pregnant got on a bus. She noticed the man opposite her was smiling at her, so she immediately moved to another seat. This time the smile turned into a grin, so she moved again. The man seemed more amused. When on the 4th move, the man burst out laughing. She complained to the driver, and he had the man arrested. The case came up in court. The judge asked the man, about 20 years old, what he had to say for himself. The man replied, "Well, sir, it was like this. When the lady got on the bus, I couldn't help but notice her condition. She sat under a sweet sign that said, 'The double mint twins are coming.' And I grinned. Then she moved and sat under a sign that said, 'Logan's liniment will reduce the swelling.' And I had to smile. Then she placed herself under a deodorant sign that said, William's big stick did the trick, and I could hardly contain myself. But, Your Honor, when she moved the fourth time and sat under a sign that said, "Gold Circle Rubber," could have prevented this accident. I just lost it.